All right, let's talk about the strong and silent type, which is a reference to Gary Cooper. Tony likes to liken himself to Gary Cooper, who he considers the strong and silent type. But Tony's the biggest whiner, piss and moaner crybaby I've ever seen. He's a complete contradiction. This is one of the most jam-packed episodes in Sopranos history. First off, we got Christopher fully spiraling. Dude shooting heroin in broad daylight, beating up Adriana, and sitting on her dog and killing it. And the worst part? Christopher doesn't even care. He literally looks at her like, oh well, I'll get you another dog. And that's one of the most messed up scenes in Sopranos history. That poor little dog, she crawled up under him for warmth. So Adriana's finally reached her breaking point. She calls up Tony and everyone gets together to give Christopher an intervention, which is already hilarious because these are the worst people on earth to be given life advice. Paulie, Silvio, Tony, guys who solve their problems with a pistol in a trunk are about to lecture Chris on healthy coping mechanisms. This literally plays out like a bad sitcom, like a Seinfeld episode from hell. And Paulie's reaction to him killing the dog is the funniest ever. So Adriana's breaking down crying, you killed my dog Cosette. And Tony, freaks out because he's the sociopath who somehow loves animals. The whole Pyomai situation. He whacked out Ralphie because Ralphie killed Pyomai. So Adriana's like, he killed my dog Cosette. And Paulie had the best reaction ever. You killed the dog? What, was it barking? Like that immediately justifies it. So, I'm a dog owner. I love my dog. Apollonia is her name. My princess. She barks a lot. Anytime someone comes to the door, she's just meow, 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 meow. And barking at the mailman can be pretty damn annoying, but that's not reason enough to whack her, using Paulie's logic. So in Paulie's mind, barking is immediate justification for murder, a punishable by death offense. Something tells me he doesn't own any pets. So in this intervention, it's a round table of all the people in Christopher's life, basically breaking his balls, talking about how his drug use has affected them. And it's being held by Casey Jones from the Ninja Turtles. Remember that guy? Yeah, that's Casey Jones. And Christopher, he's having none of it. He starts roasting them back, telling Tony he's going to die in a few years the way he eats. His type A personality. Even his mom has to say her piece, and Christopher calls her a whore. How you gonna say that to your mom, dude? And by then, Paulie has had enough. He already has mom issues, so he don't like people talking about their moms like that. So he punches him right in the face and drops his ass. The whole thing turns into a WWE brawl, and Chris looks like he got jumped outside a strip club. Instead of going after Paulie, the guy who actually hit him, he tackles Benny like a coked up linebacker. And honestly, Benny had it coming. Not because he did anything wrong, but because Benny loses every single fight he's ever been in. This guy is O for life in fights. He's the glass-jawed king of taking L's. Christopher kicks his ass here. Phil Leotardo beat his ass with a golf club. Artie Bucco beat the out of him. Like, how do you lose a fight to Artie Bucco? That guy's the biggest pussy on the whole show. Remember when he got his little fucking earring ripped out by that French Yeah, that pussy? How you gonna lose a fight to Artie? The man's a walking midlife crisis in an apron. At this point, Benny should have lost his rank just based on his fight record. The mob's all about respect, but how do you respect a guy who gets his ass kicked in every fight? The mobster rule book says you can't lose to Artie Bucco. It's bad enough Benny got beat by Chris and Phil, but Artie, that's career ending. Imagine being a crime family surrounded by killers, thieves, and psychos, and still being the easiest guy to beat up. Like, why is Benny even here? At some point, they should have just made him the official Sopranos punching bag. Every sit down, okay, before we discuss business, everyone gets a free shot at Benny. And the worst part, he still thinks he's a tough guy. Like, bro, you've never won a fight. Even Meadow has a better shot at winning at this point. But I digress. Remember that Pyomai painting? You know exactly what I'm talking about. So Tony buys this ridiculously bad painting of his horse. And Tony falls in love with it. It's like some sad middle-aged man trying to feel cool, but instead of buying a Corvette, he gets a $6,000 painting of his horse. And I think his horse is like a metaphor for his whores. Whores. She was a hooah. We all know what happens there. So Paulie ends up getting killed in a fire set by Ralphie. So in the episode before, Tony kills Ralphie's ass over the horse. And Tony's crew, they all know it, but they don't want to say it. They know Tony killed Ralphie over the horse, which is actually a pretty boss-ass baller move, but also makes you look like a psychopath. So if Tony's willing to kill his top-earning captain over a horse, what do you think he'll do to you? So indirectly, that move kind of kept his crew in check. And now he's stuck with this painting that reminds him of his pet that he lost. So he gets rid of it. And Paulie has the bright idea, oh, let me salvage this. I'm going to paint a little f***ing Napoleon hat on his head and hang it up in my room. Not Napoleon, like Napoleon. And then you got the whole subplot of the sexual tension with Carmela and Furio, which is the greatest love story that never was. Furio pines over this middle-aged mother of two when he could be banging all the young chicks in the world. But nope, he's got to have Carmela. And she gets her hair cut, and Tony absolutely hates it. Why do middle-aged married women always decide to chop off their long hair? It's not a good look. Men do not like it when you do that. It's the equivalent of your husband letting his belly grow out. When a woman cuts off her hair, it's like her way of letting herself go. It's every married guy's nightmare. You come home one day and your wife, who used to have this nice long hair, suddenly looks like she lost a bet with a lawnmower. It's always the same cut, too, the Karen, the suburban wine mom special. It's like the moment a woman turns 40, she just wakes up and goes, yup, time to look like an assistant principal. So Tony absolutely hates her haircut, but Furio loves it. And Furio is really into Carmela. I mean, he comes from Italy where women speak eloquently with the gorgeous accent. But what really turns on Furio is hearing Carmela go, Furio, sounding like f***ing Peter Griffin's wife. Furio. Make it make sense. Tony gets so turned off by her ugly haircut that he decides to start banging the nanny with one leg. Yeah, that happens in this episode too. I told you this episode was jam-packed. The way that light's hitting her, shit, she doesn't look too bad. Even I'm willing to look past the one leg. But that must have been a little awkward. I mean, I don't know. I imagine it's possible, but how do you bang a girl with one leg? Or no legs for that matter? I mean, if anyone's watching this and you have a girlfriend with one leg, please enlighten me. So what did we learn from this episode? Carmela's haircut is a middle-age crisis in disguise. And Tony can dish it, but he can't take it. He's allowed to age like a rotting wheel of provolone, but the second Carmela does something unappealing, he loses his mind. And her haircut turned him off so bad, she drove him into the her leg, of another woman. Paulie's a freak who keeps paintings like serial killers keep trophies. And Christopher's intervention was just an excuse for the guys to beat the shit out of him. Christopher killed Adriana's dog like an asshole. And Benny is the character that takes the most L's in this show's history. It's one of those episodes that reminds you The Sopranos wasn't just about mobsters whacking each other. It's about family dysfunction, midlife crises, and aging poorly, both physically and emotionally. And that's why I love this episode. So let me know in the comments what other episodes you'd like me to do. We'll see which one I want to do next. I really like the Gloria Trillo character arc. That one's pretty good. Anyways, I hope you guys have a good night. Be safe, watch some Sopranos, and God bless. This episode is dedicated to Cosette. R.I.P. Little Cosette. Little dead Cosette, baby, you're much too fast.